Welcome everyone. In my most recent episode about African violets, I talked about the suckers on African violets and whether I keep or remove them, and how the suckers can grow into secondary crowns and turn the single crown plant into a multiple crowns plant. And so in today's episode, I thought would be a good idea to show you how I separate the multiple crowns that result from that growth. So here I selected a few candidates for you for this episode that I will be separating the multiple crowns from. Growing in 3 crowns. This one is Hunter's Melon Melts. I believe there's also 3 crowns on it. And finally, the largest one today will be Hunter's Cashmere, one of my favorite Hunter's varieties. My chickens woke up from the nap, so I was hoping I would have a quiet time to make this episode, but they started chirping. So if you hear some chirping on the background, you know that these are the stars from the Great Turtle Chicks playlist on the background, just playing in their playpen. So all varieties here are supposed to grow in a single crown. They're not trailer varieties. And normally they grow like this one. This is Eva from Linden Lion Greenhouses, recently repotted. And this is Motive's seedling, Dance of Galaxies. And this one I just repotted yesterday, Fredette's Sweet Jenny. And when they're grown in a single crown, they bloom very nicely, like this Jolly Cupid, or this one is EK Scarabée, or Scarab, it translates into English. Or this one, Apache Gem, it's finishing the blooming cycle. And they still can continue to bloom when you let them grow the secondary crowns, or the suckers they're called, when they just start growing from the main crown stem. They can keep on blooming, but as you see, the look on them is not very tidy. They look kind of chaotic and messy, and of course the main crown starts growing sideways because that secondary crown starts getting bigger and pushing the main crown aside. And here Hunter's Melon Melts is also blooming, but not as well as it could be blooming, because that's a very good blooming variety. Let's start with an Avatar. This is a semi-miniature variety with variegated leaves and bell-shaped blue blooms by Nadezhda Berdnikova. You can see that it was potted very long time ago, longer than a year ago, so no wonder it hasn't been groomed for over a year, and that's why it continued to grow as it wanted to grow. So we're gonna take care of it now. And what do we see? How many crowns we have? So in addition to the main crown that is currently blooming right here, we see 2 nice secondary crowns that had grown from the suckers from the main crown's stem. So because the plant hasn't been repotted for over a year, I will perform the decapitation surgery on this plant rather than just partially removing the root ball. So I will use the X-Acto knife here, and very carefully not to make it close to the hands, so we don't have any surgery related injuries. So we're gonna just cut it off from the surface of the soil. The main point is to remove it from the ground to cut it off from the root ball. So here we are, nice and clean. The stem looks healthy on the cut. So now we're gonna clean it up and separate the crowns from each other. I'm using a container to collect the waste here. So we're gonna be just cleaning it up and also looking at how many crowns should be removed from the main stem. So here is one growth right here, and use the X-Acto knife very carefully. And there are also tools that can be used like sucker plucker and all sorts of other helpful tools that people use. So here's one crown with one center and also a small sucker growing already sidewise from it. Now, next one here, we're gonna remove some more spent leaves. It will start growing really nicely after this operation. All right, and also when you remove the leaves, you can easily see the other crown that needs to be removed, and this one simply can be broken off just like that. So here's the second one, and of course our main crown that has blooms on it, we will be removing the old leaves from it, from the bottom, and also all the blooms. The blooms can be removed easily by pulling sidewise the bloom stalk. So here's one, another one, all right. So it's shaping up nicely, not quite close, but we'll get there. Don't forget, I'm looking through the camera, whereas normally I look at the plant, so without the camera between me and the plant. But yeah, I think this one is a good leaf here. So the goal is to remove all the old leaves that the plant no longer needs, because it used them up already for the growth, for the photosynthesis. So maybe this one and this one. And let's see. Yeah, this one is kind of sticking out. All right, so does it look nice? I think it looks nice. So this one still has the stumps that need to be removed, and I usually either scratch them with my fingernail or with the reverse side of the X-Acto knife, just like that. And then I make a clean cut about ½ inch from the point of growth of the lower row of the leaves. So all the skins from the stem. So now it's nice and clean, and then I usually just use a clean napkin or Kleenex or paper towel just to remove all the moisture from it, so it's nice and clean and dry before being repotted. And this skin I'll be cutting off about here. And so with the clean X-Acto knife, we're gonna make a cut about ½ inch from this point right here. Here we go. And if there are any leftovers of the dead skin, we'll remove them. And so now it's very nice and clean, and will be ready to be potted up, and you can let it dry for about 10-15 minutes or so. So it's important that you don't pot it when it's still oozing off some of that plant's juice, so to speak. One of the commenters commented on that, and that was a very important point. Thank you so much for that comment. So we will let this one dry and we'll take care of the other two. So now this one here is the second one, basically doing the same procedure, removing all the old foliage, all the dried up bloom stalks, and preparing this one as well for repotting. All right, this one is also ready to go, and now we'll take a look at the third one. So we have one main stem here and also the sucker that started growing sidewise from that main stem. So we can break it off easily and we can plant it separately as well if we need to, but I'm gonna discard it because we already have 3, so that's plenty. And with this one we're doing the same procedure pretty much, so I'll meet you guys after I prepare this one. Our crowns are drying up a little bit. I prepared the 2-inch plastic cups. There are holes on the bottom that I make with soldering iron, and I showed how to do it in one of my older videos. So these are important for drainage, and I also prepared some labels with today's date and the name of the variety. And for the labels I used the electric tape, just like that, and the ultra fine permanent marker Sharpie. Next I filled up the 2-inch plastic cups with soil, just like that. So you see a little bump on the top that will help the crown settle after it's watered. And the potting mix, I use my own potting mix because I've had a lot of unsuccessful results with store-bought potting mixes. I tried different varieties and none of them worked for my plants in my environment, so I started making my own potting mix, and it looks like that. It has the main base is Promix, different varieties. I tried HP and BX, and they both worked well for me. I've had people comment that they had no success with certain Promix varieties, but that never happened to me. All Promix BX and HP batches that I purchased worked well for my potting mix recipe and worked well for my plants. And I will include a link to the video with my most recent potting mix recipe in the description below. So the main base is Promix, which the main base for it is peat moss and perlite, and then I add extra perlite and a few other ingredients. It's nice and fluffy and airy, and the plant's roots love it. Next, I take like a little brush to make an indentation here for the crown stem to go in. And it goes in just like that. And then I gently press it in so it kind of is nice and snug. And I use the watering device, the DIY watering device. Basically it's a ketchup bottle or a condiment bottle, and I water gently around, but not in the center. Never water into the center of the ground, that's not a good idea. And so it starts dripping, so I'm gonna use another condiment cup here and just press it a little, tap it rather gently, and so it's nice and snug. And this will be going into my greenhouse for the African violets, and I'll show it to you at the end. And also I'll include a link to the video about the greenhouses that I use to grow my African violets. Now comes the next one. Just like that. And here it goes. Okay, so don't plant it too deep. So you need to plant it in a way that the surface of the potting mix is right under the very bottom row of leaves, and it needs to be centered. So if it's not centered, you can just adjust it gently so it is centered. All right, the second crown is ready. I'll pot it up. And finally the third one, doing the same kind of operation right here. And the third one is going in. And gently water. I forgot to mention that the potting mix is pre-moistened, so there's no need to water it too much because it's already moist. So just a little bit for the stem to settle in. That's it. All three of them are ready to go into the greenhouse. My mini greenhouses are here on my plant stand with the Barina T5 warm yellow lights, and I will include a link to all my lights video in the description box. So here they have right now the temperature 77 max and 52% humidity. And so here's our newly separated single crowns that used to be a plant with multiple crowns. So I'm gonna cover them with a dome and they will be ready to go. Start rooting up. Okay, let's decide now what we're gonna do with Hunter's Melon Melts. Will we be trying to save part of the root ball or doing the decapitation on this one as well? So we see here, here's one center, one crown, blooming right now. It's a very nice variety with some really nice peachy pink, coral pink, I would say, blooms, and in cooler growing temperature it has some nice green edge around the petals. So this is one crown here, this is crown number 2, and this is crown number 3, and potentially there might be more, but we shall see. So there is no way we can separate two smaller crowns and keep the other plant grow because it's now crooked and it needs to be repotted freshly. And let's see when I was potting it up, actually not too long ago. So I guess I just repotted it the way it is with multiple crowns. But today we will rectify the situation. So again, on this one, I will do the same thing as with an avatar. I will do the decapitation surgery, and to do it, we will need to disinfect the X-Acto knife that we used with an avatar. So I know my plants are healthy, but if you just received a plant and you're not sure if it's healthy, then use certainly either the isopropyl alcohol and some cotton discs to disinfect the X-Acto knife. You can also use bleach. So we'll just use a few drops of this, of alcohol, and just disinfect the X-Acto knife between the different plants that you're performing removal of the multiple crowns. All right, and now we'll do exactly the same thing. Yeah, you see how there is another sucker growing here inside. We will remove that one. So now let's remove the entire plant, cutting between the bottom of the bottom row of the leaves and the surface of the soil. Try to go as deep as you can so we have enough stem to work with. All right, and here we go. Nice and easy. The center of the stem is very healthy. There's no dark spots in there. So now we'll just be removing all the spent foliage and separating rather the crowns from each other. All right, let's take a closer look here. So you can usually see when you look here on the bottom, you will see the beginning of each of the crowns and how they should be separated. And of course, removing the older leaves from the bottom usually helps clear the path. So you see how here is one, and this one needs to be removed with the X-Acto knife. And sometimes I can just start cutting with the X-Acto knife and then just pull it away, just like that. And then you can grab the leaves and it separates very easily. That's one. Now, let's see. Yeah, this one, you can see it right away here as well. So you see that was the main crown right there. And this is where the sucker started growing, and then it turned into another crown as it kept on growing. And we're gonna remove that one as well. Cut always away from yourself. Don't cut in the direction of your hand. That's not a good idea. All right, so here's another one. We'll clean it up. And that is what used to be just a single crown plant. And of course, here's another small one. We'll just discard of it, and it breaks off very easily, just like that. So, removing the leaves and removing all the blooms. And of course, the new growers especially, they say, why do you need to remove the blooms? They're so pretty. But if we keep on the blooms, then the blooms will take on the energy from the plant that is needed for the root growth. Because the main task of this plant will be to regrow, or rather to grow new roots. And of course you can save the healthy leaves to propagate, but because we'll have 3 crowns as a result of this procedure, and hopefully all 3 will root nicely, then we don't need to propagate more of these because I'm trying to downsize so that I have time for other hobbies in my life. All right, and now on this one, actually, there are some roots on the bottom, the healthy ones, that I will keep as a backup for the rooting. So I'll just remove the old skins here from the stem, and it will be ready for repotting. Okay, so that's crown number 1, ready to go. Now crown number 2, also removing leaves, also a few roots here, which is nice. I usually keep them if they are nice and young roots. Of course, if they are old and dry roots, then they need to be removed. All right, usually it's recommended to keep about 2 or 3 rows of youngest leaves, so this should do. And finally, the third one here, same thing, removing bottom leaves and keeping maybe 2 or 3 rows of leaves. Well, yeah, this one also has one tiny little root on the bottom. This one is ready to go. So now we'll keep them for about 15 minutes to dry and prepare the soil and the labels, and I'll meet you there. Now we have to plant them into the 2-inch plastic pots with the label with a variety name and today's date. So the same idea, same potting mix. So making a little indentation here and planting one with the root down, the one that had a little root on the bottom. Now watering it gently to stabilize it. Here we go. All right, one is ready for the mini greenhouse. Next one. All right. Oops. Okay, this one is a little crooked, so remember, you can always fix it. Just tap it gently to make it straight. All right, this one is ready for the greenhouse. And last but not least is the one that had some extra roots, so we'll make a deeper indentation for those extra roots, and let's see if we can snug them in just like that, and fix the potting mix around it so it doesn't fall out, and water it so gently. Okay, and it is ready to go. And here they are, together with an avatar, separated crowns, ready to root. Now here's Hunter's Cashmere. So I love this variety, and I will try and see maybe if I could save some of the roots from the main crown, which is right here, and it's blooming right now. And then we will need to remove this secondary crown right there. That's the center of it. So I will try using an X-Acto knife to separate it from the main stem, and then save some of the roots for the main crown, but the separated secondary crown will need to be rooted in the mini greenhouse, just like the previous two varieties. So let's get started. So for that, we will need to get this first from the pot, and I'll just cut off the roots right away, and then get the plant. Well, we'll save this root, we'll see. I can rinse it, but I might cut it off as well. All right, this was wicked, so all my plants are wick watered. That's why the roots grew into the wicking reservoir. So now I'm gonna get a container to collect the waste, and so I will squeeze the plastic pot. Yeah, this was almost a year ago. That's why it hasn't been groomed for a while. And then trying to pull it out, and sometimes I use tools to pull it out, but this one came out quite easily. So you see the root ball? Yeah, it's huge, and the roots are nice and firm. They're not rotted, so it's a healthy root ball, except it's overgrown. Yeah, usually when the roots are dead, they separate very easily. This one has nice and firm roots, and whatever separates is just the part of the wick and some of the soil. Let's see. So first we'll remove the leaves that this plant no longer needs. the older leaves and they've been faded. Some of them have spots on them. We're now getting into the warm weather, so some leaves are just getting dry tips from the warmer temperatures. You saw that room has 77 degrees, which is on the warmer side for African violets. And this one needs to go. All right, and so then, yeah, we just keep 2 or 3 rows of leaves. So you see this, now you can easily see where the secondary crown is coming out, right from here. So it might actually even have its own roots because it's coming right from the soil right there. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try and cut between the smaller crown here and the main crown with the X-Acto knife and cut off the smaller crown with some of its roots. So here we go. You see it right there. So I'll be cutting, making the incision right there and going deep into the soil to get some of the roots. My chickens are playing on the background. I hope it doesn't interfere with this video. And then I'm using this letter opener to kind of pull it away. And of course we need to untangle the leaves of these 2 different crowns. Trying to save as many leaves as possible, but then we can of course clean it up. All right, so here we go. Grab by the main stem here and pull this one away. All right, well, not too many roots, but there is one healthy one, and then the second one. So this is a very nice crown to be rooted. Big sucker. We'll separate some of the older leaves on the bottom row. Yeah, and I think it's gonna be ready to this one as well. All right, so before these young roots dry up, let's plant this one up. So it will be going into a plastic cup into the same mini greenhouse. So we will place some potting soil on the bottom, and then because this sucker has some roots, or rather young crown now, it's past the sucker stage, so place the roots and then cover the stem and the roots with the potting soil. Don't plant it too deep. If you bury the plant, you can lose the center of the crown because it doesn't like to be moist in the very center here. So make sure that the potting mix is here, just barely approaching the lower row of leaves, just like that. Right now the crown is a little loose in the potting soil, but once we watered it, it'll fix the wobbliness here. All right, and a little here. And I'm trying not to get the water inside of the crown. So yes, it is a little wobbly because there's not too many roots to hold on to the potting mix, but in the elevated humidity of the mini greenhouse, it will grow new roots in no time. The root cleanup is done, so here's how many roots I have left, and some of them are quite long and they're nice and healthy roots here, you can see up close. So why remove them if we can keep them on this plant to help it create new roots here from this stem. For it to grow new roots from the stem, it needs to be cleaned up from all the fragments of the removed older leaves and also from this dead skin on the main stem. So I will use the reverse side of the clean X-Acto knife, so this side here, not the sharp one, to prevent the deep scarring. So just the surface removal of the dead skin all around. So the stem cleanup is now done, and I will use a clean napkin to kind of wipe it down and also let it dry a little bit so that we prevent any bacterial infections when it's planted, because this one will be going directly to wick watering. But I will water it from the top for about the first few weeks until the new roots start growing from this section of the stem. While it's drying this portion of the stem, the root ball, the remaining root ball, can be covered in plastic to prevent the drying of the roots, so they're still nice and moist. It's the main task here is to dry this portion that was just cleaned up, the portion of the bare stem. Hunter's Cashmere is a large growing variety, so I prepared a 4.5-inch plastic pot with the label with the name of the variety and today's date. So this one is 4.5-inch diameter, and I prepared this pre-soaked wick that was pre-washed with some dish soap in advance. And when you pre-soak the wick, it starts pulling the moisture right away. However, because even though it has significant roots, because the main portion does not have any roots, I will be watering it from the top. But the wick here is in preparation for when it goes from top watering, when it transitions from top watering to wick watering. So the container, the reservoir, will still be empty and it will be watered from the top. The wick material is the acrylic worsted weight yarn, 100% acrylic, number 4, and it works the best for me as the wick material for large and standard varieties, and for miniatures and semi-miniatures like Jolly Cupid here, I split it in half. So you can see here it's half of that worsted weight. I placed some of the potting mix on the bottom of the container and then made a little indentation here for the root ball to go in. And now we take our plant from the plastic bag that was not covering the portion of the stem that was drying out. Now it's nice and clean and dry, and we plant it roots down here. And when you look at the plant here, I measure it in a way that it's deep enough to level this portion of the stem here, right here, with the rim of the plastic pot. And then I can fill up the remaining part of the pot with the potting mix. So if it's not deep enough, then I get it out of the pot and make the indentation a little deeper. And this way it should work. Very long, nice roots here. Yeah. All right. And then I just gradually start filling in the pot with the potting mix. And finally, I gently water it here, just to evenly moisten the soil, even though it was pre-moistened, but it still needs to have a little moisture on top. So here's where the soil is. I will show you so you can see how deeply it was potted. So not deep, it's just touching the beginning of the spot in the crown stem where the lower row of leaves are growing. And here it is. It will go on the plant stand together with the repotted separated crowns. And here it is on the light stand. This is where it will be growing together with the rooting separated crowns from an avatar and Hunter's Melon Melts, and a large secondary crown of Hunter's Cashmere. If you found this video helpful, please share, like, and subscribe to support this channel. Happy growing!